JackitK here, and I did owe you guys an episode of Pokemon Go Fireside Cast. I recorded one, it's up on Patreon, but I think instead of trying to go through and edit it, especially with how much things become outdated, I just recorded a quick game and chill for you all, just talk about my Ralts Community Day weekend. And if anything, and if later on I go through that podcast and find anything valuable that's worth sharing with the general public, I'll just include it when I record a new one. But I kind of just wanted to do a short episode, which was hard to do when there was so much news in the realm of Pokemon Go. Go Rocket and all that jazz. I'll probably talk about it eventually, but I think I'll just make it like its own episode. At least what I've been calling editorial, just talking about all that. And I still got a lot to do with the whole Shadow Pokemon thing. I still want to take a separate episode just to talk about the origins of all that. But let's get into the nitty-gritty and start with how my Ralts Community Day has been and go from there. And as you can see, I did some raid today, so I was able to stock up on Rayquazas. No shiny, but considering how lucky I was with the shiny I got early on, I'm not too worried. Lots of Ralts hatches thanks to that whole 10-kilometer egg thing. Yeah, I definitely see why people could love it or hate it. I'm right on the fence because of that. I'm conflicted about whether to do anything about this Nidoran, because it looks so good, but when am I actually going to use a Nidoran female? I think one thing I should note, I was not able to do, despite my wishes otherwise, I wasn't able to do the community day for a whole 3 hours with an extra hour of evolving, because I had family events going on that same day, and I felt like if in order to do completely, I had basically 3 choices. I could either do the 3 hours community day and pretty much miss out on everything important from the family event, do the family event and not do any sort of community day walking at all. Or basically what I did end up doing, take 2 hours, well, it was supposed to be an hour and a half, but by the time I got to the car, it was 2 hours, and considering I was catching on the way back to the car, yeah, it was basically 2 hours of gameplay. Then drive over, and hope that I get to the family event in time for dinner. I was a little late, but to the point where people were still eating, so I didn't feel like I was being a complete jerk and not showing up at all. Oh yeah, like, I guess since I'm showcasing Rayquaza, I might as well just mention this. I have a fun story with that. Basically, they announced that Shiny Rayquaza was coming. It came in the raids. I went out to the college that's along the way from work with the hopes that they do a community or do a raid hour, because lately it seemed like they were doing one every Wednesday. They didn't, but there were still 2 raids, and this sparkly guy was on my second one. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, how good was it? Just like right in the range of technically good, but not good to my stupidly high standards. Like, even if there's like 1 point less of defense and HP but perfect attack, that would have been great with me. But I just don't know if it can really compete with the other Rayquazas I have. Therefore, I'm not sure if I'm actually going to use it. Therefore, is there really a good point to the shiny if I can't show it off? Well, I guess technically, I don't have this is the only perfect attack Rayquaza I got, and it's probably one of the ones I caught today. Wait, really? No, it was a little bit older than that. Point being, like, I feel like it's hard to justify powering up a Rayquaza when it's not even, when I could be spending those resources on a better Rayquaza. But it does give me a little bit of assurance to go through the ones that actually did power up or at least weather boost and see that those don't have perfect attack either. Essentially, for those of you, if I do decide to podcast this as well as upload the video, essentially from eyeballing it, it looks like my shiny is a 12, 12, 13. While my very best Rayquaza is 96% in IVs overall, and it's like a 14, 15, 14. Second best one is like a 12, 15, 15. So I guess if I really want to do it, it's right around that same range. And like if I need the stats badly, I do have like a full arsenal of Salamence still. But I feel like I got a little sidetracked in here, and I'm trying to keep this short and sweet. So, back on the tangent, or should I say the topic, of Ralts Community Day. So, overall I got 5 shinies. Funny enough, only one of them was male. As much as I wanted to get more shinies, probably more so than any Community Day Pokemon that we've had this year, let me just do a quick skim to make sure that I'm not forgetting something obvious. I mean, Treecko was pretty good, but considering I just like Ralts, so just having a cool shiny isn't enough on its own. I also what puts Ralts on the top is just because it's a Pokemon I like outside of its shiny form. Not to say that shiny form isn't cool, because it is, but like, I think the only other shiny that I would want to the same degree as Ralts this year is Mamoswine. Possibly Larvitar. No, Larvitar was last year. Yeah. Mamoswine is basically the closest competition I can think of. And even then, like, I definitely like Ralts shiny more. The only reason I even bring up Mamoswine is because it's meta relevant, so I actually could, if I get a good shiny, I'll actually be using it. But the point is, I wish I could have done the full 3 hours to get more shinies, but I definitely don't regret my decision because I feel like I got the best of both worlds. The only way it could have been better is if the 2 events that I'm speaking of were on separate days. Like, this would have been the one time I've been okay with a Sunday Community Day. Granted, it's because of how situational. Or should I say a Sunday evening Community Day. Yeah, the freaking fact that it's right in the dinner range screwed things up even more. Because, like, if this Community Day went to the time frame I had before of 3 to 6, or better yet, 2 to 5, I could have easily done my 3 hours and then just spend whatever time after I drove over to the reunion family event to evaluate my shinies. I only say it worked out perfectly because I was just, as I was eating dinner, I was taking care of my evolutions, and I just had just enough time between eating, interacting with people, and doing evolutions. I had just enough time to evolve everything I want. So if I stayed later, I probably wouldn't have had the time I needed. Anyways, just give me a sec to actually pull up my Ralts collection so I can go over the other things. Like, I still have yet to clean this out. I guess half the problem is, like, I'm trying to justify... Oh, this is the one I just caught today. That's why it's a low CP that's still in this collection. I have these eggs, which, considering I use one of my finite and technically paid for with money resources to hatch, I feel like I just want to trade it rather than transfer them, so I can justify as much as possible by getting a little bit more candy. There's a few of these Ralts that I was on the fence of whether to keep or get rid of because they were good but not good to my pristine perfection standards. But I did also get a Galley for PvP, a Gardevoir for PvP, a shiny of each of them, and I believe a non-shiny. I'm pretty happy with the IVs set, because I think oh. Well, I think this was the best female I had at the time. It's the Glade that really stood out. But essentially, for Great League, competitive league at least, the best spread of IVs for a Gardevoir, one, it'd have to be under level 18. This one was pretty much perfect on the dot. I only had to power it up once to hit that $14.99 cap. But if it was perfect, it'd probably be the exact level for it. Anyways, for both Gardevoir and Glade, you seem to want a Pokemon with 0 attack IVs, perfect defense, and perfect HP. So, this Gardevoir's okay, but this was the frickin' pride and joy. 0 attack, I believe 13 defense, and 15 HP. Couldn't really ask for a better Glade. Only thing is that I'm gonna need to power it up a little bit. It's currently sitting at the 1652, but I think Glade gets a bit more use out of synchronized than Gardevoir. So the fact that my better IV'd out of the two, the fact that the Glade has better IVs, I say worked out pretty well. Oh, I feel like I done goofed, because this Ralts with the 11915 probably would be a little bit better. I mean, I'm not quite sure because attack stat is pretty heavily influencing the CP formula. I don't know, like, I gotta get rid of some of these Ralts. I can't keep everyone that seems like it might be slightly better than what I already have. But maybe I'll keep one or two of these that I think are close. Hold it on to December in case we get a revisit with Community Day moves and all that. I still gotta figure out what to do with this old Glade I have, because it doesn't got synchronized. I think it might even be too high level for PvP, so I can't use it for Great League. I don't think I could trade it to someone for Great League, so they could use it. Yeah, there's like I had a lot of choices to make basically. I guess part of it too was because Gardevoir gets more DPS out of its fairy moveset than out Synchronize. I left a few unevolved. But man, this Ralts, I thought this would be a fun one to evolve at the very least. This was not from Con Bravo that I went to a couple weeks ago, but from the year before. I did a trade and got a lucky Ralts. I held on to it, but I was on the fence of trashing it for so long just because it was like level 2 or something stupidly low like that. But then, recently before Community Day, I put in an IV calculator that tells me how much dust it takes to power up. Maxing this scale out, I'm not gonna say it costs less candy, because it doesn't, but costs less Stardust than, like, this. Or something else. And I guess part of the reason I wasn't too worried about the other reason was in just evolving this lucky Gardevoir instead of one that was higher level is because I already have a perfect IV Gardevoir. And I'm pretty happy with its existence overall. A lot of sentimental value behind this Gardevoir too. Just because I hatched it out of an egg. I'm so excited to get a perfect IV, and there's like this whole moral dilemma of, do I save it for a Glade, or do I evolve into a Gardevoir? Because I definitely like Gardevoir more than I like Gallade as a Pokemon. And then I feel like I made the foolish thing of actually bringing it up on the internet and got all these people saying like, "You'd be a fool to evolve. You save it for Gallade. Gallade's gonna be great." Well, joke on you guys. When's the last time you've seen a Gallade actually show up on a raid counter guide? Gardevoir is at least the best fairy type. Huh. But jokes aside, that's the very abridged, jumbled up version of what makes that Gardevoir so special to me. I feel bad because I wanted to make my first perfect Gardevoir Yukiko after a character from a JRPG that I enjoy. But it was male. I went with it anyways. No, and I've had some thoughts that if I come across a Gardevoir that I want to use predominantly, or just have a second Gardevoir that I've used, I can name that Yukiko, and I can give him the name Yuko. Still on the fence about going through with that, but it's an idea I've had floating around. Oh wow, look at all of that rambling. I got a lot of routes to clear out. Too many sentimental value ones that I'm at the point of like, can Pokemon Home just please come out so I can have my bag space back? Like this one I got from Nintendo Capri Sun while we were trading. Essentially we were trying to get a lucky Ralts for our community, so we trade Ralts for Ralts. But I used it for the fun of it, but yeah, I don't even think it worked out too well for the PvP scene. Well, it might be okay if it wasn't so high in level. And then this one that I got from a friend from the UK, and for very similar reasons, I can't really find a use for that one besides sentimental value. So I got a lot of work to do just with clearing out my Ralts bag. And while I wish I got more shinies, I'm overall content. I feel like I got a lot out of the 2 hours. I definitely feel like I worked hard to get as much as I could out of the 2 hours. It's all good in that front. I guess one other thing I can talk about in my Ralts Day retrospective before ending things off here is that whole concept of how they threw eggs our way. It was apparently tweeted out. Somehow I missed it though. Essentially, I don't know why they did it, but they decided on the event where people will be burning through their incubators because increased efficiency on the incubators takes less steps to hatch them. They make every egg you get from a stop a 10-kilometer egg that hatches a route. Man, I'm so conflicted on this because on one hand, it definitely helped me with getting my Ralts candy count as high as it could be, and with one Ralts having two different evolutions with two significantly different purposes in my eyes. Like Gallade, with its unique typing, can squeeze its way into PvP quite a bit of time, while Gardevoir is the best fairy type, so you can actually, while unfortunately it still gets outpaced by a lot of things that fairy type would be good against. For example, fairy is good against dragon, fighting, and dark. Problem is, for dragon types, most people would go to their ice types or other dragons. For dark types, people would go to their Machamps. And give me 1 sec to recall things. Fairy is good against ice or dragon, fighting, and dark. Fighting types, yeah. Oh yeah, everyone would go to their freaking Mewtwo's and other psychic types. So like, it's great that we have a very quick move now. But I'm still waiting for that situation where the type can really shine. Because in the main series games, fairy types were immune to dragon types. So if that fully translated into Pokemon Go, they would at the very least make excellent anchors against Dragon types, and I think they still do. But I think in this game, because there's no resistances, or I mean no immunities, where therefore you take 0 damage, I think in Pokemon Go they just make it a normal resistance. I could be wrong, it could be like a slightly better resistance. Like I'm trying to think of a good example. A normal type would normally be immune. I think... You know what? I'm just gonna dump the whole tangent. Point being, I feel like there's still some potential that fairy types can cash into, because I feel like fairy types should have a lot more prominent stand in the meta against all these dragon type Pokemon that show up in raids. And yet, especially with so many of them being dragon flying, ice types seem to dominate that field. Do appreciate that we do get the very quick move, and that it was not a community day move, because honestly, there was other Pokemon besides Gardevoir that really needed that charm. I mean, like, look at the things you could do with a Mr. Mime, or better yet, a Azumarill. Or funny enough, what was it that was dominating Jungle Cup? Wigglytuff, I think. Wigglytuff was just dominating. I've heard a lot of things about Wigglytuff in the Jungle Cup, solely because it had that very quick move. And I forget how this relates to the whole Gardevoir Ralts Community Day thing. I know that was on the very end. I wanted to talk, let's talk about eggs. How did I get all the way to that tangent? Oh yeah, because I wanted as much candy as possible, because there's so many different things you can do with a Ralts. And for sentimental reasons, I probably would want more than one. I actually would be willing to power up a Gardevoir, teach it a second move, etc., even if I don't plan to use it. And with the upcoming PvP tournaments, I'm pretty sure people have all chose like Nightmare Cup or similar cups where Gardevoir could squeeze into, or even Gallade, so second moves can be pretty expensive. So that alone is going to cost a lot of candy. For all reasons like that, I am for the whole egg thing, but on the other hand, like, incubators cost money unless you're grinding out the gyms. You're basically paying money to get more of the Pokemon that you're just catching in the wild already. So it's tough. I don't want to tell them to stop, because I like how they're doing different things and spicing up Community Day. It's not just the same old grind each time. But on the other hand, I definitely see the frustration of getting all these 10-kilometer eggs, especially if you didn't see the Twitter notification. Get all these 10-kilometer eggs, think that something cool is going to happen, and just get routes. Get more of the Pokemon that you're catching. I don't even know if these eggs had the same odds of being shiny as Ralts did during the Community Day window. I would assume so, because that otherwise would be even more pointless. But it is what it is. We'll see if they do it again in the future. I think if they do this again, the best opportunity to do it would be when we have a bonus like this one, where incubators are more efficient so we can go through them. More so if people aren't spending money on incubators. Their free incubator isn't completely wasted walking 10 kilometers on the routes they already have, because they'll be reduced to 2.5. Any final remarks before I end things off? And I guess I forgot how I forgot to make note of how many routes I had before the start of Community Day, but I guess I can at least see how many I got now. Oh! They did add routes. They did add a purified notification for routes, even though it's not in the game yet. And can we take a moment to talk about how much of a missed opportunity it was not to have all the Go Rocket stops still show up during Community Day, but not have them include shadow routes? I mean, we won't go into it because we're almost at half an hour as is, but I did want to at least bring that up. Am a little bit disappointed that if we were going to be interrupted with Go Rocket as we were trying to spin stops to make sure we don't run out of Pokeballs to catch the routes, that they didn't at least have a special form of routes that we could only get from that particular activity. Mudkip is not as bad with routes as it was with Mudkip, because with routes, there is at least a use for routes, a fully evolved routes, after Community Day. Like, you could either go with a double fighting type Gallade or a double fairy Gardevoir. You don't need the special psychic type move in order to make routes relevant. Mudkip, on one hand, you could argue a similar argument because it's part ground, but Swampert really shines with the Hydro Cannon, which you unfortunately can't get anymore. And they didn't introduce Shadow Pokemon at all until after Community Day for Mudkip. So Mudkip just kind of got the short end of the stick. And with how much they were talking about this right before Community Day, I was pretty much convinced that we were going to get it sometime. If not during Community Day, then like right after the 3-hour catching window, like Team Rocket would have a takeover with their Shadow Routes. I could have sworn they were going to at least do something like that. Especially with how much they were talking. You guys remember how much they were talking about the whole... Just so you know, guys, if you try to evolve a Pokemon on Community Day that's purified, it will still learn Return unless you team it away before evolving it. I'm pretty sure something like this was actually on their Twitter. So it just seemed really weird that they went through all the trouble to talk about that and not being in a situation where you can evolve your routes during the Community Day window. At least the purified routes. I think that covers everything that was really on my mind with Routes Community Day. I know this is kind of mumbled all over the place, and I got the AC running. I'm gonna try to, like... It's as simple as, like, 3 clicks to do the noise reduction, and from a test recording I did right before this, that seemed to take care of most of it, so I am kind of thinking, like, that won't be an issue. I'll be able to just take care of that. But if it is, at least I can stay as a game and chill, where my standards are a little bit lower than like in a podcast or the other types of videos I do on the interwebs. Hopefully it all works out. Thank you all for tuning in to this really casual Gardevoir Community Day retrospective. I've been actually... with the other projects I've been juggling, I actually feel like I've been struggling to actually properly cover routes, these Community Day retrospectives, but they are something I want to do, especially because I think I'm not going to be blogging Community Days anymore. Eventually, again, especially because I'm just screen capturing and not doing too many recordings of the world around me, I really feel like they tend to fall into a very similar category of walk around as a character for a bunch of turns and then find shiny routes every now and then, or shiny Pokemon of the month. Point being, I feel like they get pretty samey. So with this, I feel like I'm actually doing more talking about it than just showing me running around catching Pokemon until I find a shiny. I feel like talking about it makes for more entertaining content than just screen capturing myself doing it. So if you guys do enjoy this format, let me know. I am hoping to try to do this for every community day going forward. Try to do a quick retrospective. Eventually, when I get better at it, I'm gonna make it shorter than this one. I've been trying to go back and forth of how to do this because I would still like to do a once a month overview of everything going on in the game. But I also like to do editorials at least once a month because I can actually, in theory, batch record them and upload them consistently without having to worry about having the time to do them once a week. But I think doing these community day retrospectives are also a much cleaner way to get my thoughts out and get the content to you guys in the most entertaining way possible. Because I noticed lately, as I've been doing community day vlogs, they've basically been turning into a music montage of me running back and forth catching every Pokemon I see until I get the shiny. And that kind of gets very samey. I feel like just talking about it would probably make for more entertaining content, ironically enough. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think overall my goal is still going to be to try to do 2 podcasts a month. It just may be a little bit more unpredictable when they're uploaded. Try to do something at the beginning of every month at the least, and then do this sort of retrospective. Maybe we'll shoot for 2 days, 3 days after the community day is over. Whenever that may be. Let me go through a couple more community days and see how it pans out. And I'll have a better idea how to put that on the schedule. Either ways, I do have a calendar for my YouTube uploads up on my site, which you can find in the show notes. I'll be sure to post when I'm going to upload the retrospective on that schedule, so you can go to the site and see when my uploads are in general, as well as for things like the podcast and that. And yeah, I still want to do a podcast just around Shadow Pokemon, but considering how Shadow Pokemon are been out for a while already, it's not going to be much speculation on what the Shadow Pokemon mechanic is going to be, because we know already, and more about the history of it, especially with the GameCube games. I just gotta find the time to do that. I think I got all the thoughts about uploadings and all the way. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope to see you all for the next one. Be sure to check me out and show me support on whatever platform you listen to, so I can keep going forward. Take care.